A chance in New York. The cold wind of New York's winter swept through the bustling streets of Manhattan, carrying with it a mixture of scents, coffee, fresh pretzels, and the sharp tang of the icy air. Amelia Hudson wrapped her scarf tighter around her neck as she hurried toward the subway station. The soft clack of her heels against the pavement mingled with the city's vibrant sounds, honking cabs, murmuring crowds, and street musicians trying to make a living. Amelia was late for an important client meeting at her architectural firm, something she prided herself on never being. Just my luck, she muttered under her breath, her auburn hair escaping from beneath her woolen hat. As she reached the platform, the train pulled in, screeching to a halt. She squeezed into the packed car, her portfolio bag held tightly to her chest. It was standing room only, and Amelia found herself squished between an older man reading the paper and a tall, dark-haired stranger holding on to the metal pole. The stranger had a calm air about him. He was dressed in a tailored gray coat, his sharp jawline dusted with light stubble. He looked up from his phone and smiled faintly as their eyes met. Amelia quickly looked away, focusing on the advertisements plastered above the seats. The train jolted, and Amelia lost her balance, stumbling slightly. A steady hand reached out, catching her elbow. "You okay?" the stranger asked, his voice warm and steady. "Yes, thank you," she replied, her cheeks flushing. The train slowed again, this time arriving at her stop. She stepped off with the crowd, feeling the stranger's gaze linger for a moment before the doors shut. A coincidence. 2 weeks later, Amelia sat in her favorite cafe, a cozy spot tucked away on a quiet street in Greenwich Village. She was sketching in her notebook, trying to finalize the design for a boutique hotel her firm was working on. The sound of soft jazz filled the space, and the smell of fresh croissants wafted through the air. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" Amelia looked up to see the same stranger from the subway. His dark eyes sparkled with recognition, though he hesitated as if unsure she would remember him. "No, not at all," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her. "Thanks." "I didn't mean to interrupt," he said, setting down his coffee cup and a small notebook. "You're not interrupting." "Just working on a project," she replied, feeling oddly at ease. He smiled. "An artist?" "An architect," she corrected, closing her notebook. "And you?" "I'm Liam Carter," he said, offering his hand. "Journalist." "Freelance, mostly." They chatted for hours, their conversation flowing effortlessly. Amelia learned that Liam had moved to New York 6 months ago after spending years traveling and writing. He loved storytelling and believed that even in a city as fast-paced as New York, everyone had a tale worth sharing. Here's a new romantic love story titled The Lighthouse Keeper's Promise. The Lighthouse Keeper's Promise. The small coastal town of Cresthaven was a place where time seemed to stand still. With its weathered cottages, cobblestone streets, and the ever-present sound of waves crashing against the cliffs, it was a haven for those seeking solitude. At the heart of the town stood the Cresthaven Lighthouse, a towering sentinel that had guided ships safely to shore for over a century. Eleanor Ellie Harper had spent her whole life in Cresthaven, working as a librarian at the local library. She loved the quiet rhythm of the town, the salty air, and the endless expanse of the ocean. But life had become monotonous since her fiancé, Daniel, passed away in a boating accident 3 years ago. One foggy morning, while walking along the cliffs near the lighthouse, Ellie noticed someone new, a man repairing the lighthouse's railing. He was tall, with broad shoulders and dark, wavy hair that the wind tousled. Dressed in rugged work clothes, he seemed entirely focused on his task. Ellie hesitated, then called out, "Morning. Are you the new keeper?" The man turned, revealing piercing blue eyes that seemed to mirror the ocean. "Good morning." "I am, as of yesterday," he said, his voice warm. "Name's Lucas." "Welcome to Cresthaven, Lucas," she said, offering a smile. A growing connection. Over the next few weeks, Ellie found herself crossing paths with Lucas often. Sometimes it was during her morning walks, other times, he would visit the library, asking about the history of the lighthouse or borrowing books on maritime navigation. Lucas was a man of few words, but had a quiet charm that intrigued Ellie. One day, as she handed him a book on local legends, he asked, "Do you believe in second chances, Ellie?" She was caught off guard. "I think everyone deserves one," she said cautiously. "Why do you ask?" He shrugged. "Just wondering." Their conversations became more frequent, and Ellie learned bits and pieces about his past. Lucas had worked on ships for years, traveling the world, but something had driven him to leave it all behind and settle in Cresthaven. He didn't elaborate, and Ellie didn't press him. The Legend of the Lighthouse. One rainy evening, Lucas invited Ellie to the lighthouse to show her the view from the top. The storm clouds cast dramatic shadows over the sea as they climbed the winding staircase. When they reached the top, Lucas gestured to the horizon. "They say this lighthouse is enchanted," he said. "Enchanted? How so?" Ellie asked, intrigued. "The legend goes that it grants wishes to those with pure hearts," Lucas explained. "Sailors used to believe it could guide them not just to safety, but to whatever their heart truly desired." Ellie chuckled softly. "Do you believe in that?" Lucas looked at her, his expression unreadable. "I'm not sure. But maybe I've started to." Their eyes met, and for a moment. The Serenade of the Violin. The bustling streets of Chicago hummed with life as Clara Bennett weaved her way through the crowd. The chill of early spring hung in the air, and the scent of roasted chestnuts from a nearby vendor made her stomach grumble. Her violin case bounced gently against her back with every step. Clara was a musician, a dreamer who spent her days teaching music at a local school and her evenings playing in small cafes or on busy street corners. Though her life wasn't glamorous, it was filled with melody, and she found joy in sharing her music with others. On this particular evening, Clara set up near Millennium Park, her favorite spot. The park's open space was perfect for the acoustics, and the passers-by always seemed to appreciate her performances. She opened her case, adjusted the strings of her violin, and began to play. The soft, mournful notes of her song drifted into the air, weaving a story of longing and hope. As she played, a man stopped a few feet away, his hands tucked into the pockets of a worn leather jacket. When she finished, the man clapped softly. "That was beautiful," he said, his deep voice carrying over the chatter of the crowd. Clara smiled, tucking a stray curl behind her ear. "Thank you." "I'm Adrian," he said, stepping closer. "And you are?" "Clara," she replied, her voice tinged with curiosity. The first connection. Adrian lingered, asking her about her music and her life as a performer. There was something about his presence that felt different, not intrusive, but genuine. He told her he worked as a writer and was currently stuck in a creative rut. "Maybe your music can inspire me," he said with a grin. "Only if you promise to write something worth reading," Clara teased. Adrian laughed. "Deal." Over the weeks that followed, Adrian became a regular at Clara's street performances. He always stayed until the end, often walking her to the train station afterward. Their conversations ranged from favorite books to their dreams and fears. One evening, as Clara packed up her violin, Adrian handed her a small notebook. "What's this?" she asked. "Something I wrote after hearing you play," he said, his expression shy but hopeful. Clara opened the notebook and read the first few lines of a poem that captured the essence of her music, its passion, its sorrow, and its hope. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It's what I feel when I hear you play," Adrian replied. A new melody. Their bond grew stronger, and soon, their friendship blossomed into something more. Clara found herself looking forward to Adrian's presence, his humor, and the way he saw the world through words. One night, after a small performance at a cafe, Adrian surprised her with a question. "Have you ever thought about performing on a bigger stage?" Clara hesitated. "I've dreamed of it, but dreams don't always come true."